there. And let's take a look at what these folks choose to prioritize. First, Renekton and Aphelios already taken off the board here. But what really has my eye is the first pick.
Yeah, because so far, throughout the day, it's been kind of interesting. We've almost been seeing the Brazilian meta evolve within the day as well. Aphelios and Renekton weren't highly prioritized in the first two matches, and since it's kind of changed since then a little bit in terms of bans. Of course, they did get picked, and we're starting to see things change a little bit. But there's still some things which stay the same. Pantheon and Akali coming to mind, and most interesting to me is the fact that Pantheon and Akali are getting banned on both red and blue side. It's
Mm.
not just red side bans coming in against it. It just feels like teams don't want to have to deal with it in Brazil.
Yeah, nobody wants to play against that. But with Camille being the last ban here, we're also going to see a new look for top lane. At the moment, though, INTZ, considering what I expect to be the Kaisa for the first pick here, you've got your choice of the top tier AD carries, and Kaisa really seems to come right at the S of that list.
Kaisa is, I think, 100% pick rate today, pick ban rate. And it makes sense. Kaisa scales well. And considering the way scaling's been working for a lot of these AD champions, crit scaling doesn't work as well as Kaisa does. And Kaisa's just got a better sort of power curve to it as well. And there we go. This is a more, standard draft to me. It makes sense so far what we're seeing. The Jin to match immediately, the Talia, which isn't banned again. Again, 100% pick ban rate, pick three times, banned one time so far. It's absolutely massive. And so far, Cruzeiro's draft, they're just picking power pick after power pick. They can look for a support power pick after this. Potentially, Renekton's not on the table, but Twisted Fate's still available here. A lot of options for them.
You've got to imagine that INTZ pick up Twisted Fate here because they have the Nidalee this time, and the other time that we saw Nidalee, it kind of felt underwhelming because she didn't come paired with that hard CC. I want to see something a little bit more oomphy picked up here, and Alistair certainly brings the oomph.
Still a lot of hard CC, and the other option here is of course the Galio as well. Brings hard CC, same as Twisted Fate, a bit harder to get the taunt off, or even the Justice Punch compared to a gold card, but brings so much more utility and tankiness. So that is also an option, with the likes of Atilia, with the likes of a Nidalee as well. And it is going to be still the Leona matchup. It feels like teams are completely disregarding counter picks in terms of the actual lane for their supports. The fact that Alistair beats Leona, they're just going with Leona for the team fights.
I will say that I like Leona into Alistair for a totally different reason. Uh, Being that Alistair is so good as a roaming support, and picking Leona keeps you from wanting to roam as much. And that's really where the matchup shines. Is not necessarily in the actual lane dynamic, but in the fact that half of Alistair's strength can't really be used to its full potential.
That is kind of true in that both sides don't really want to roam too much either because
Mm.
Leona can't really roam effectively when there's an Alistar threatening your ADC. So it kind of works both ways. And perhaps, Cruzeiro is feeling comfortable in the PBO Hawk matchup versus Mikau and Kabu here for both sides. And we are seeing, the LeBlanc and the Yone band once again. Yone experiencing a very high popularity on the ban list here. Not played a single time, but I think it's been banned in almost every single game so far. But again, Twisted Fate, Galio, the globals are still available in the mid lane.
Yeah, and I expect one of those to be banned here, but I don't know. I think that you have to ban a design Tuesday because you already have the Talia. We can just see another Twisted Fate Talia game should Cruzeiro choose to pick that up, and that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I'm trying to think this because if I remember correctly, Envy plays Twisted Fate. So INTZ doesn't actually need to ban it. Whereas I'm trying to think of Nosferus, and my impression of Nosferus, partially shaped by Udia, is that he's
Mm.
a very aggressive, strong laner, like who likes assassins, such as that LeBlanc, the Akali, the Yone sort of players. So I'm not sure if Twisted Fate is necessarily in their wheelhouse, same as Galio here.
Yeah, like I think Nosferus, I think LeBlanc. Unfortunately, they chose to take it away. I don't know what their plan is here, but we are going to be getting to see our first Volibear of 2021, and that's really exciting to me, not because I think Volibear is the most exciting champion, but because it gives us another sort of foothold into what the CBLOL meta will be. This is going to be something else that we can test off of, but there's the Twisted Fate that we expected picked up for INTZ.
Yep, just makes sense. Envy plays it so well, navigates it so well. And is that going to be a gangplank? That'll be an interesting choice because for Volibear, both Sting and Truckalax do play that Volibear here. Truckalax is actually not known for picking sort of that duelist style champion like the Camille, uh, like the the Renekton's or that sort of champion, or even the Ergots, more for tanks because he's coming from LP Law in Portugal, which followed the more traditional tank meta in the top side. So Volibear is probably about as lane dominant as he's gonna pick since Renekton and Camille are banned.
And now you've invested all of this, you get the last pick for Nosferos. We can only assume, unless we're throwing something odd into the jungle. So
Talia mid maybe in the
yeah,
Volibear jungle.
it certainly could be, but Aurelia mid looked really
Okay.
good last game, and I guess Nosferos was watching, wants to try his hand at that, and this certainly fits into his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, definitely 100% makes sense that Nostros would take that Irelia here. And if it's into the Twisted Fate, Envy's in for a bad time here because Irelia can just run you down as Twisted Fate. There's really not much you can do. And the Twisted Fate, I imagine, is just going to constantly be leaving lane, doesn't want anything to do with this Irelia at all. Either that or Revolta just comes running in and ganking this mid lane repeatedly here. Because I could see a world in which
Hmm.
that Nidalee Twisted Fate, you shut down that Irelia so hard that she can't do anything.
Yeah, if you can just keep Nosferos from being involved in the game, that's absolutely huge for INTZ. And I don't just mean that in a basic way. Nosferos being a very large personality to propel Cruzeiro forward, if he's being held back, if he feels like he can't fight, that's going to be turned into Cruzeiro not contesting objectives. And that's where you start to really get afraid is when you do start to play the game more passively, because more often than not, today at least, the passive teams have not been the ones to walk away with the win. INTZ have got the options available to them, and we didn't even get to talk about this. They have a Fiora.
Yeah, I mean, when you drop yourself something like a Nidalee, a Fiora, and a Twisted Fate, that tells me that you're not looking for team fights, which is what's popular internationally. You're instead looking to try and play macro split push specifically here, and we've seen that Twisted Fate being used to great effect in multiple games today. Macro seems to be the name of the game. We saw Red Canids with their clean macro. We saw the likes of Loud comes to mind with that Twisted Fate Talia combo and their split push Camille as well. It was just so clean. So INTZ's composition here looking real scary in terms of the split push. Cruzeiro's team comp a little bit more mixed here with what they are looking for. They're wanting to, it looks like to me, all in and try and force team
Hmm.
fights. And to be fair, with that Volibear, which we've not seen throughout most of today, their threat of diving a turret is very high here.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Is we have as much as we have the split push win condition, the turret dive is so potent from Cruzeiro that I feel like we are going to get a very even matchup as long as both these teams' macro games are on point. For right now, though, we're heading into the 5-man split. No action just yet. All these teams want to feel each other out and get the game going once we hit the lanes.
Yeah, and aside from our first game of the day, Pain Gaming versus Loud, we didn't really see a ton of level one action, like maybe a bit of a punishing catch on somebody, who's roaming around their own. But other than that, the early game starts have been fairly quiet here. And for both teams, I don't think either of them are confident necessarily trying to pull any cheese off. They both look to skill. They're both fairly comfortable. Again, a lot of experienced players here. So no need for the cheese necessarily.
No, not just yet. The mozzarella not needing to sort of take the game in any of these matchups. They don't want to try and coin flip this because actually,
Oh, wow.
wow, as I say coin flip, I'm like, oh, you know what? Actually, it is exactly even for both these teams. I'm surprised that the public opinion doesn't favor INTZ, but it might just be a sort of what's this word? A result of the way that they were at Worlds.
Yeah, that's true. So we were talking about this a little bit before we started the broadcast, and I was telling you that we're North Americans in terms of where we stay, and so watching INTZ was particularly painful for me because as a North American, the one team they beat in the play-in stage was Team Liquid, North American representatives who were first seed coming out of the play-ins, and they lost to INTZ. As a caster for the Brazilian team, it irks me that the only team INTZ beat was North America, and they lost to everyone else. So I felt like INTZ let me down twice at Worlds, and there just was no winning in that situation.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't inspire a whole lot of hope, especially. Although the one thing that I will say is that Liquid specifically plays through very, very nice, strong lanes. They like to sit there and let their micro abilities individually shine. And I think that INTZ being able to shut that down as an org is going to help them a lot against Cruzeiro specifically. Revolta going to eat a few stones on his way out as Sting's actually on the hunt here. This is kind of dangerous. The gold card is available. Flash
Oh.
forward will take him down. Revolta gets first blood and Sting overestimates himself.
Yeah. So when we talk about, early game junglers and all that, Talia's name doesn't exactly show up because Talia is not a good duelist. What Talia is very good at is farming and ganking. She clears jungles really, really quickly. So to me, Sting, that was a huge question mark. Sting opting to walk into Revolter like that. You don't win the 2v2. And not to mention, Envy just shoved in. So Nosferus was not actually in the right position to come out and reinforce. We questioned the return of the king, and we said that Revolta is going to be the one to lead INTZ to victory here. This is the perfect way for him to start.
Yeah, this is actually the best way that we've seen Italy showcased in the early game is with the commitment of that hard CC that we didn't get to see last time that Italy was picked up. If Revolta continues to pair up with Envy, the mid jungle duo is going to be unstoppable no matter what Sting and Nosferos' synergy is, and it doesn't look like it's
Mhm.
that on point right now. It's a warm up. We're only 4 minutes into the game, but they've got to step on it if they want a way back in, or a way in rather.
Mhm. We also talked about how Nosferus, there's a world where Nosferus just gets shut down completely.
Hmm.
The other way you can do it is you don't have to shut them down if you're so far ahead that they are irrelevant. And if you farm Sting, that works too. That Sting's trying to make a recovery in the bot side here.
Yeah, right now Cabu is the
Oh.
next one on the board. Will go down, and Macau
Mm.
also not really going to be long for this world. So Cruzeiro, at least through the bot lane, are finding themselves a little bit of a victory condition here. I like that we're seeing this open up one more time, where the bot lane just seems like it's split a little bit.
Yeah, we just saw this last game a little bit with sort of the vertical split. I don't think we might see it quite as much this game because to be
Hmm.
fair, Mikau and Kabu weren't falling apart quite as badly as what we saw last game here. But one thing we should probably note is the fact that PBO and Hawk already won that before Sting was there. Sting was pretty much there for moral support and to pick up assists. That fight was kind of already done.
Yeah, and right now, looking to take the fight to another lane. As you mentioned, shutting down Nosferos, the stun doesn't quite come in, but that's no flash on a very important laner.
Yep, they can just continue to pick on that one a little bit there for now. And we're starting to see the bot laners roaming up. In the case of Cruzeiro here, PBO is actually hanging around as well, maybe trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I don't think they have vision on Cabu. They're just assuming that because they didn't see Cabu
Oh, you
walking
can do
down to the bot
this.
side.
Envy,
But
he
yeah.
gets way too caught out as a nice roam up from PBO. Holy lord.
Okay, Envy. I was thinking here, they're trying to catch Kabu on the repeat gang. Forget it. They just had Envy dead in their eyes there, and they just wanted to make sure they take down that Twisted Fate. It kind of works. He does have, teleport available though, so he can just teleport back into lane. And one thing to note, Envy is not running unsealed spellbook. This is electrocute Twisted Fate. So if you burn that teleport here, that is one less summoner spell for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, you know what? I can't even be happy really about that. Like, I feel so bad for Envy. Like, why is the bot lane here? Get out! Like, they walk up, they get their single kill. The nice thing is that he can return the favor. Has hit the level 6, has the destiny. So I'd expect to see INTZ making some good use of that and padding Envy's KDA a little bit to make up for how awful that felt.
Wasn't even three people. That was four. Sting showed up as well in that. It was just that was massive overkill. And I like the fact that they're thinking, hey, you know what? Before you pull the gank, we'll pull the gank.
Hmm.
That's not a bad idea. But can they make it worthwhile? Because they killed Mikau, and normally you run the lead a little bit from that double kill in the bot lane, but they ended up sending them into the mid lane instead. So they don't have that huge advantage in the bot lane that they normally might get. And Mikau got a bit of time to try and shut back out, catch up a little bit of waves. And if we look at the items, they're not that far apart.
No, certainly not. Right now, Jin feeling himself just a little bit as PBO's got a little bit extra gold in his pocket, but they're going to need a lot more to actually make this work, and more could come in the form of a dragon. The Wind Drake, the first one up on the board, is going to be really good for PBO specifically, who likes to be able to kite people out, and does get a lot of utility packed into his ultimate as well that the rest of the team can really use.
Originally, we saw the fan vote was split 50-50. I want to bring up the point that most of the casters, CBLOL casters included, myself included, thought this should be quite heavily, or not heavily, but it should be sided in favor of INTZ here for
Mm.
how they're playing. But when we look at how the early game has broken out, Cruzeiro looks like they're the ones who came in with a plan. Revolta got a great first gank off, but since then, they've just kind of been farming up, and it's been rotation after rotation coming up from Cruzeiro, and they're managing to stifle the potential for TF ganks by constantly ganking him instead.
I want to point something out there that stood out to me as very, very smart. Revolta was starting up the Krugs. He threw the spear and then turned away from them entirely as he realized that Cruzeiro's bot lane was gone to cover the mid lane. That right there, that makes me really happy. That is the awareness of a jungler that can really play as part of a team that has the competitive experience that we know Revolta brings, and we see it showcased in a situation like that.
And I'm sure Envy was just as happy when he saw the awareness Revolta had there as well, because they've been just picking on Envy. And look at this rotation here. PBO and Hawk, they're suddenly in the top side of the map. Very, very clean with the rotate. They pick up Shelly. They got the bot side already, so why not just rotate to the top? They pick up Herald en route as well. And now they can force Bull completely out of lane. And Bull was the only sort of really good lane they had where the Fiora was doing so well into Truck Slax's Volibear here.
Yeah, you should be able to get a lot of turret plates right now. I'm actually surprised that we don't see the Rift Herald channel because this turret could just go down if they wanted it to. Instead,
Yeah, called
they
it.
end up, there we go. They end up pulling Hawk back, maybe splitting the turret gold a little bit better here with just Sting and PBO around to collect it. What are they losing on the bot side, though? Because that's what I want to pan to. I want to see how Macau is doing and what he's getting for all this time.
They're doing fine. They're actually zoning Trucklax out at the bot side right now. So Trucklax is getting zoned out of experience range a little bit. But because first turret's down, because Hawk could make his way back down there, knowing that Shelly and Sting and PBO would be sufficient here, they don't get enough. They don't even get that many plates on the bot side. And Cruzeiro suddenly grow themselves about 1,000 gold lead out of seemingly nowhere here. And as much as I want to give credit to INTZ for being a strong team, for having a lot of really good players, they're giving up an awful lot here in the early game. And I'm not necessarily seeing signs of, coming back into the game from them at this 10-minute mark so far.
I hesitate to say that they're out right now because of two things. One, Bowl is still technically winning, and Bowl is a huge part of your win condition. And two, the fact that we actually have quite a bit of gold piled onto Macau, even if it doesn't rival PBOs just yet. That is a what I want to call more versatile AD carry, where PBO will be a
Really.
little bit more supportive for the mid game stages.
That is definitely a potential thing here. But Jin, when he gets ahead, I mean, with the Gale Force as
That's
well, there's a
true.
lot of execute potential there. It's kind of dicey, and because there's so many squishy targets here, right? Like you've got the Nidalee, you've got the Twisted Fate, you've got the Kaisa, and even Fiora actually to a certain extent, kind of squishy.
Hmm.
It's just really risky to let PBO get ahead like that. And I'm saying let PBO get ahead because Revolta has not given any attention to the bot side, just been farming up a storm, but again, we've seen this before. You're not going to outfarm the Talia. You're not going to outfarm necessarily the Lilia, these sort of farming champions when you're on a pick like Nidalee. You need to start ganking. Same with Envy. No Destiny used quite yet.
You know what? I was thinking about that, how Envy needed to get stuff done, but we just saw him try and do something by walking all the way up to the top side, and Trucklack's totally safe up there. INTZ, they don't have this setup to support Envy's ganks yet, and it's making it so that this Twisted Fate pick just is not really resonating right now. Sting, though, putting out the map pressure along with Hawk, can really threaten anyone, and Macau being zoned off CS as we speak without even having vision on where Talia is.
That was actually a pretty funny rotation there in terms of the map because Kabu and Mikao actually went to the mid lane and sat in the fog of war in the lane trying to bait Nosferus when with Envy using his body as bait for Nosferus there. Didn't pan out. They decided to walk to the bot lane. While that was happening, Sting was looking to try and get a gank off in the bot lane, but nobody was there. So the ganks didn't work out. And what we saw from Mikao was basically just a reaction to not having any vision on the side of Cruzeiro of where anybody was.
Right now, you don't have that much vision for INTZ around this dragon either, so it will cost you the second dragon of the game as Inferno will go down, and we're getting an Ocean Soul on the board. That's two dragons away for Cruzeiro and a long, long way away for INTZ right now. So you're going to have to find some way to really regain the momentum. If this was a Mountain Soul, I'm not as concerned, but it's not.
Yeah, it's an ocean soul, as you rightly mentioned. And on top of that, I'm not sure they can contest it in 5 minutes here. Their power spikes aren't necessarily going to be there because Envy kind of had to split his build a little bit. So he can't rush his first mythic, had to go and stop by the Seeker's arm guard. That's going to set him behind. Revolta, sure. Revolta is, I think, in a decent position against Sting. But when I look at Bull, when I look at Mikao, when I look at Kabu, they're not going to be in a great position in 5 minutes. Their power spikes won't be able to quite match Cruzeiro's power spikes. So they're going to sack at least one more dragon, most likely, unless they get a great pick. And that's going to put them at soul point when Baron's on the table as well. So INTZ, macro wise, strategically speaking, is in a very, very bad position, actually. They need to make something happen. And they've been trying, it just hasn't been successful.
Yeah, we'll see if they can do something here because there's been a lot of small pieces of cheese being laid out across the map, and you see another one there right for INTZ as they try and position in this bush to catch somebody out rotating to the top lane to help Bull. Even Macau's gonna pile in here, so we
Oh
might see
my
something
goodness.
come of this, but nobody cares about the top lane right now. A Cruzeiro or everywhere else. Hawk, no. Oh,
No.
unlucky. Come on. All right, the jig's up.
We've heard of the Fnatic Death Bush, but have you heard of the INTZ Death Bush?
It's very very much alive is what it is. Unfortunately, there's nothing like they're trying to create an objective where it doesn't exist. Envy, however, very much a plausible target as Sting almost just takes him down.
Yeah, and the one man Death Bush from Sting worked out a lot better, but now Bull is on to him.
Yeah, you can definitely take down Sting right now. And Macau actually decides to finish it off here
Pure
as
instinct.
Hawk goes low as well. Sting definitely has to be given up. Hawk flashing away. Trucklax as well as Nosferus teleport in, but there's nothing else to be had here. Even the teleport coming in from Envy to try and assure some safety, but that is a nice pick just for the moment. It is a small bit of gold, but a bit of gold nonetheless.
Oh, well, you say it's a small bit of gold, but for INTZ, it's signs of life here because
Hmm.
they up to this point had just been sitting on that first blood, and that's literally all they had in their pocket. But at least now, they managed to force something here from Bolt. Granted, it was Sting kind of just walking blind into a bush here. As you can see, he just walked in there, tried to drop a ward, and Bolt was like, "Oh, hello there," and they just punish. And also, the killer instinct from Mikau here was frightful. That it's not just the champion's kill instinct. That was Mikau's kill instinct to come in. Oh, that
Mm-hmm.
spirit from Revolta to steal it all away. But they knew they could win. They go, they power, they take that. And because they take that fight, look at what else they're getting here. It's not just an empty victory where they just get one kill. They get Shelly. And with the amount of standing gold right now, the amount of pressure, the amount of targets they've lost, they need to get pressure on the map somewhere here. Shelly's going to help with that.
And I'm a greedy person, so I want to say that it should go in the mid lane because that's such a valuable turret to get down. And it's the only one where INTZ can create a differential between themselves and Cruzeiro without just making it an equalization. Bull will eventually get towers, but I want to see the aggression.
Yeah, I want to see the aggression too here. Unfortunately, mid turret's so healthy right now that I'm not sure they can take it, even if they drop it there. The side lanes are a little bit lower, so maybe you look there. Maybe you look to get Bull ahead, right? Like you said, that Bull can take turrets alone, but maybe if Bull gets far ahead enough, because that's their one winning lane right now,
Yeah.
they can sort of go from there and look to make something happen. Kabu getting caught out has unbreakable will.
Well, yeah, he's super dead though, and that really stinks with about 50 seconds left on Dragon there because it means that Macau no longer safe under turret. Bold's trying to make the best of a bad situation by pushing down towards the top tower, but I would like to see, now that you mention it, maybe dropping the Rift Herald with Bull to make it so that you have to decide between Soul Point and the tower. But instead, you're going to
Oh.
decide between nothing because Revolta is going to be wiped out there. Killer Instinct by Macau once again coming in with the finishing off damage, and Envy grabs himself another assist as well.
Yeah, that's actually pretty huge there. And we said Revolta's got to be, one of the big points for INTZ's roster here, and it is coming true. He's 3-0 right now. Sting is 1-3. And killing Sting here, as you mentioned, it's huge. That's the smite off the table. And
Hmm.
considering that they had already fallen behind in Dragons, theoretically, INTZ would not win a dragon fight. So removing Sting from the equation right off the bat helps them to stall out that dragon time. It buys them a bit more time to scale back up because Bo is doing a great job of scaling.
Yeah, and it lets you use that Rift Herald in a totally free way now. We are gonna see, ooh,
Oh,
Hawk barely able to escape right there. That was pretty spooky. Envy's still looking for him, but it's more of looking for the pressure here. As that was a nice wall from Sting that unfortunately just did not find anyone.
yeah, managing to disengage them a little bit there. The battle of Hex Flashes, actually, that's pretty funny that both of them were channeling their Hex Flashes. And I suspect Hawk was looking for potentially an engage initially until that Hex Flash came in from Kabu, and he was like, nope, I'm out of here. Because that was close. But the Weaver's Wall just buys time. They're still going to lose this turret, and it's going to be to Envy here. So it's not the mid lane turret, but the mid laner gets it at least.
Hmm. And it's going to be a nice gold injection into somebody who you still do need, like going electrocute, you still want a lot of gold on your Twisted Fate because he's a big part of your burst damage. With that and Revolta, you have the chance to pick and take fights that you actually really, really like if you are INTZ because you're going into a much better team fighting team that you don't want to actually be grouping up against.
And with the items that we're seeing come through for Envy as well, this isn't like a sort of team fight or wave clear Luden's Echo sort of Twisted Fate. This is Rocket Belt into Zonia's. Envy here definitely doesn't want a team fight. He just wants to find a pick as fast as he can. And if he gets caught, he'll just go golden for a bit and hope that his team can finish off the pick and that maybe he gets out alive on the back end. I actually really like this from him. My question is, can he execute? Because again, the destinies that have come through so far haven't really been resulting necessarily in picks. It's mostly Revolta finding his own picks here. So while the idea is good, the jury's still out on execution here. And oh, is it Cruzeiro's turn to try and set up a death bush? What is this game?
Yeah, yeah, it just might be. They're fishing for Cabu here. I think he's a pretty nice pick to have, and in the meantime, you're gonna have to drop the Rift Herald because you're running out of time on that one. Unfortunately, not using it in a purposeful way as much. It will still get some value, but no turret actually falls to Shelly.
That is still a turret that will go down to Bowl or Envy the next time they're looking at it here.
Hmm.
Shelly didn't take it down this time, but there's no more plate. So the fact that it didn't go down now isn't the end of the world. It just means no instant gold. But look at the gold, speaking of which. INTZ has clawed their way back from a deficit despite a rough early game where Cruzeiro looks like they had all the moves, all the plans. INTZ just literally sits it out, manages to outfarm and come back, finding gold in other avenues here.
Yeah, even finding a lot of pressure on the map where I don't think they really have any right doing so, given the power of Cruzeiro right now, who haven't really been able to force any big team fights. It means that INTZ, they're getting to play the map however they want. You can see it resulting in turret takes.
Because there you go. Envy, like I said earlier, just walks right back up. Blue cards the thing, and suddenly they're even in turrets, and that puts them up ever so slightly in gold. Bull has avoided the camera the entire time, but look at that CS differential they're getting 40 CS and a level up on truck lags here. The Portuguese import here is not having a good time against Bull, and Bull isn't even considered the best that Brazil has to offer in terms of top laners either.
No, but, you're playing into Fiora. It's never gonna be a good time. It does feel bad for his first match of the season. Um, on stage to maybe not have the best game, but we still have that moment that he can shine because it's not like Cruzeiro's turret dive composition is going anywhere. If they can get their heads on straight, if they can coordinate a time when Trucklax is there and ready to dive and isn't relegated to the side lane, I can see him still playing a pretty big part.
They have a small window though. Once
Hmm.
Envy starts picking up, Zona's Hourglass, we're already seeing on Revolta, it's going to become that much harder to dive. Because who else are you going to dive? Kabu on the Alistair? Like, Unbreakable Will is going to negate a lot of that. On Bull, he's so mobile, he can turn things around as well. So they have to take advantage of it. I like the fact that brute force the mid lane already. That's a good start there because they have the advantage. They know Envy and Bull aren't around. But where do they go from here? All the easy turrets are gone.
Yeah, and INTZ choose not to play their game, so you're
Oh.
going to have to do something a lot more ingenious here. And Death Brush is not one of those things. It requires a lot more setup than just hoping that the enemy is bad, unfortunately.
They have spears, they have prey seekers. You're not gonna catch somebody like that with, just but they
Oh,
do they find ball.
yeah. Unfortunately, Bull mispredicting the flash there as Nosferus looks like he's going to get away, and Bull's going to lose his life. We'll take one more turret shot. There we go. The shutdown does go to Sting, and that's actually surprisingly important for Cruzeiro to have that pressure point off the map, and more importantly, one less member as this dragon approaches, because this is soul point for Cruzeiro, and INTZ want to fight.
They do have to be careful though. The amount of burst that can come out and the amount of just poke and annoyance that INTZ brings to the table is going to make this a bit of a rough take. And if they play this wrong here, they might get engaged on the back end of the
Cabu's
dragon.
looking for a triple knockup, is going to start the fight off. Revolta goes golden, but in the meantime, we can already see that the mid laner and jungler now have gone down. There's no survivability here on INTZ. This is not the team fight team, and they get wiped off the rift.
Oh, they're looking to try and finish Kabu as well here. Can they find it? No, they're just gonna let the cow go. And that fight started really well for INTZ actually, just going in insta bursting somebody. The problem is what happened after. Mikau kind of gets run down, and unfortunately, Envy is all about the burst. There's no follow-up damage. They don't manage to do anything else, and we get to see that here. And this is what I was cautious about is that if you play this wrong, you're kind of low. That spear means instant death for Sting, but Sting's done his job. And Mikau can't get into the fight. You can see Mikau's dancing on the outside, but while he's running around, he's not auto attacking. And without sufficient damage, he just dies.
Yeah, without more threats, without things to absorb the front line that realistically doesn't exist for INTZ, and Cruzero's needs to be distracted, it's going to be very difficult for somebody like Macau to actually put out the damage. The killer instinct just not going to be enough of a reposition at this point when he needs to get through people like Hawk. So the next time we get to see this is around Baron. Do INTZ maybe not lose? Like, if they don't lose Bull, maybe that fight goes differently. If they have the cross map pressure, but even if they have Bull at the team fight, I'm honestly not sure that they win.
As you mentioned, they don't have the team fight composition. So they should not ever be looking for an even fight here. This is what they want picks.
There we go. You want the unfairness here. Sting gonna try and make this a little bit more unfair. Flash over the wall will manage to save Envy for the moment, and no real answers back. Just there, getting Kabu at the tail end of it. The recall's not quite enough though, and oh no, he didn't cancel his recall. I think they might have been able to
He can
kill
execute, I
Nosferatu.
think.
It would have been super troll, but yeah, Macau should be able to get away here. The Stormbringer
Oh,
not quite
they
enough,
got it.
and he finally manages to execute. You know what? I take that play for INTZ.
Yeah, it's technically a 1.5 or 2. Yeah, Mikhail goes down, but he did actually manage to execute. Great play from him, but at what cost? Because it's kind of risky to go down like that. And Baron's on the table. PBO is already back up, and Sting should be coming up with no Weaver's Wall, so they can't turn and burn necessarily. Are they actually still going to try this? The pings are coming down.
They just might. I don't think this is a really great idea here, as INTZ are here and ready
Oh.
to fight. But just like before, even if you have 5 members here, do you win this? And I don't think that you do as INTZ. Even Bull has decided to agree and just takes down the tier 2. In the meantime, Envy and Cabu are going to try and make the most of a bad situation, but looks
Again,
like
no
Cruzeiro
vision.
should be walking away with this, and Baron does go down. Cabu now caught out on the back end. He's not going to have much to say about that. It's going to be Baron and 1 for what looks to be an inhibitor tower, which isn't the worst.
They're trying to stop. Are they trying to stop the recalls? No, it looked like they were going to try and stop the recalls for a bit of time there. And this seems to be the story of today. Every single Baron that gets started up gets taken by the team that started it up. And INT said they didn't have the vision. They didn't want to pull the trigger because, as you mentioned, they don't have the team fight team. They wanted to try and let Bull split push a bit more, but you need to poke. You can't just give up a Baron for free because no matter how much Bull split pushes, he will not match a Baroned up team.
No, never in his life. And honestly, with the Baron, it's going to be even harder for Bull for the next 2 minutes to actually make use of the or of the fact that he can split push, because now these team fights come so much easier to Cruzeiro, and this is where the split pushing team composition really gets tested, is in whether you can manage these high tension scenarios that do have to arise.
They have to find some way to stop this pressure. Maybe a flank from Bull, because Bull has not really been in a lot of these team fights. So we haven't seen how big an impact this Trinity Force, Ravenous Hydra, Fiora is. The mana immune is still stacking. So it's not fully stacked. We're not seeing the mirror mana just yet. This isn't max damage, but it's getting pretty close here. So
Hmm.
once that's done, maybe Bull will be willing to look for that flank. We are seeing the TP into the pit
Hmm.
from Envy there.
What's he looking for right now? There's no real pick here. Although, if we saw Cruzeiro push up, I
Mo
see
flank?
it. Problem for me right now is that Dragon's coming up, and INTZ are going to need to leave their safety zone. There's no vision for them elsewhere.
Dragon Soul is. Oh, they found
Yeah,
Revolta.
Revolta just disappears. Kabu, he's certainly gone here, and INTZ don't even want to fight this. They're going to give up the 2 kills, they're going to give up the Dragon, and they're going to give up mid priority. This is disaster for them.
Cruzeiro coming huge here. We had questions about, INTZ, the return of the king, but they're going to fall apart here. And it's Cruzeiro who's just, they're the ones looking strong. And if INTZ can't beat Cruzeiro here, there are legitimate questions now about whether they can be considered a top four team, because Loud's looking really good. Red Canids is looking pretty good as well. And, now against Cruzeiro losing to them, oof.
Yeah, this is a team that honestly you need to beat. They're newcomers. They haven't had the time to gel like you have. They don't have the support of a more established org like you do. But if you're not coming away on the first day winning this game after the performance that you already had at Worlds, it does start feeling maybe not so hopeful for INTZ, and like they're going to need to do a lot more rebuilding this season than they're going to do a lot of winning.
Yeah, coming off rough worlds, rough domestic, that's not how you want to start things off. And now they are facing an incredibly uphill task here. 6-12, a 6 kill deficit doesn't sound huge,
Mm.
but what do we have to keep in mind too is that they're facing up a team which has Ocean Soul, which has a composition which likes to fight and fights better than you. And there's not a lot of outer turrets left for you to try and rotate onto, to use better macro on if you can't hold 4v4 or 3v3.
Bull's gonna get found and try and take down PBO, though this could be your way. And oh, one auto
Oh.
away will not quite find him. He's gonna go golden for the moment, but it's ceremonial. He's gonna get taken down. Nosferus is gonna claim that particular bit of gold. That's a huge pick, and the fact that PBO doesn't die there, I think, really puts the, as I like to say, nail in the cake.
Oh, those Caitlyn cupcakes coming in big right now, because that's super rough. And one thing I like to remind people about is Bull. It used to be called Bankai, so seeing a repeat
Yeah.
of Bankai's performance in this game is not super surprising. When he's 0-2-1, at least he got one assist. He's been in one more fight than Bankai was on that Riven.
And like the thing is, he's very, very strong. This is not a Fiora that you can really trifle with, but you just don't have to play the game around her. And it's not, I hesitate to say, and maybe you'll counter me here, I hesitate to say that it's Bull's fault right now, as there's a fight breaking out, and Sting goes golden to buy a little bit of time. Cruzeiro should
Oh,
win this fight. They are the team fighting team, but Macau steals away a kill right up from under their noses. Trucklax will not have any of it. Flashes onto him, tries
get
to
out!
slam him down, but Macau still not dead. Hawk's
Bull's
chasing him
coming.
down, but Kabu
About
gonna
time.
be tanking it one more time, as Kabu is always the sacrificial cow here. Flashes away and looks like he might escape for a little while, but remember, they got no turret here.
Oh,
Their base is in shambles, and you've just lost 2 members around a push into your base. As Cruzeiro, they walk right back to the top lane and continue taking what they were already taking away.
Bull showed up and just went nope and started running right back out. And you gotta feel bad for Kabu, because he can see Bull just literally standing there, not wanting to get into this. And you can't blame Bull.
No.
Bull's been bullied a little bit the last little while there. And mechanically signs of life from INTZ, but strategically, there's no point. They don't get anything from that particular fight there. Mikau getting out was a minor miracle, but is it really worth it? Because Mikau has not been that big team fight presence that he needs to be.
No, he hasn't in this game, but in that particular case, I would argue that he brought some value. Being able to assassinate Sting in the backline there is the closest that INTZ have come to winning a fight, and that hurts to say, and it shouldn't be true, but it is at the moment, where I think that getting that pick, getting away, is actually the best that you're going to do for right now. Bull, however, finally is back in his comfort zone split pushing, and he is pretty scary. If they can keep him here around the fact that the Baron is spawned right now, if you can somehow stall this out, I think INTZ have a way.
That's a pretty big ask right now. And look at this. This is Trucklax versus Ball in the 1v1. Oh, never mind. Forget the
In
1v1.
yeah,
INTZ has arrived.
in the 1v400 as INTZ commit the entire cavalry into the bot side. They don't quite pick off Nosferus, but now Hawk is the one that they need to take down. Oh, unfortunately, Mikau gets deleted, and that, much like we said last game, is all of your damage. You lose Kabu as well, and that's going to be the end of that push. Your base is being invaded by super minions, and unfortunately, your chance to win the game there, we saw it for INTZ, they couldn't quite finish off.
And because they couldn't finish it off, now Cruzeiro can. Baron is up. There's no way to contest whatsoever here. And they've got supers pushing in as well. So Revolta has to go back and defend. They just can't contest this. It's going to be Cruzeiro's final push once they pick this one up. They'll probably even maybe stall it out long enough for Trucklax to respawn.
There's certainly a chance. He's, what, 4 seconds
Yeah.
away, so he should be able to get this Baron, and
Yeah, okay,
that'll
they
really
stalled it.
help against the Fiora as well, because I expect that Bull isn't going to go down without a fight. He's going to be in the side lane, even as his base is going down, because that is their one way that they win. This Baron buff is going to make it so that that really becomes more ineffective.
And yeah, we've seen it before already. Game one, right? Loud came back with a huge, sort of base race into the back as well. So we could potentially see it again here. That's, as you said, it's the only way I think INTZ's really got a chance at this point. That or back aces onto Cruzeiro. And that is highly unlikely so far. And I do want to point something out, though, for Cruzeiro. Sting is 75% of the team's stats right now.
That's unfortunate. Not a good look. However, I think it's nice to applaud that
Oh.
Nosferus hasn't died yet. There's a TP, so things could change here as more deaths will be hitting the board. Envy, he's technically golden.
At least he gets gold some way, right? Like, 'cause- oh man, this is no Messiah TF we're seeing here, unfortunately.
No, and
That was a very questionable teleport.
you're going to have to deal with quite a bit right now. You saw the plan to try and take the Elder Drake, but that's going to be completely stuffed as now you're just trying not to lose the game. Cruzeiro, they're hemming you in, and Sting comes riding in on a wave of glory, walling off the rest of the team here. The Hex Flash is channeled, but no knockup to come in just yet. Kabu headbutts, but doesn't quite find the knockup. At the moment, gets a single one, but they're being run over by Cruzeiro, who really don't look like they're taking damage at all. They focus on the base and walk away with their first